Thank you very much. Thanks. Thank you. Thanks, Dick. And thank you very much, Ann, for doing this. And I want to thank the group for hosting these. This is great. We don't get enough chance to talk about foreign relations issues on the campaign trail. I have a tendency to think that's why we elect more governors and senators to presidents, because we don't talk about foreign policy issues. And yet we're in as Thomas Friedman calls it, a flat world where communications, contact happens all the time. I saw the recent piece of that just this morning at one of your great international companies in Pioneer Hybrid. They were talking with me about the need to hire individuals to come in and work with them in either technology or other types of fields, and they're having difficulty bringing them here, so they're taking the work there and having individuals work for them in India doing work that they'd like for them to do here. Because of the flatness of the world today and the flatness of how technology moves. My home state of Kansas, the aircraft industry, some of that work is hired out. The engineering work some of it's done here, and then some of it's done overnight in Russia, in India, in other places. The world is a flat place. It moves quickly, and information moves quickly, and we need to move as well. We need to be a country that's very engaged on international issues, and we need to talk about those. And that's what I'm going to discuss tonight, are some of the international relations issues. I've had a fabulous day, although, on a couple of scores. I was at Pioneer Hybrid. I grew up on a farm, and so I was out in a cornfield this morning, and I really thought this was wonderful. But the corn must have been nearly 10 feet tall. I'm not exaggerating that. And I was going, ours never gets this tall in Kansas. And then the guy shoots back and says, well, we don't send you the good stuff. We keep the good seeds here that'll work on this deep soil and stuff. We've got other varieties for you. And I go, okay, yeah, that's why ours only gets to be 7 feet tall. And we don't get the yields, but you do have some wonderful soils. And the person that helped start the country was Henry Wallace, and my background's in agriculture, and he's just a towering figure within the agricultural industry. Secretary of Agriculture, Vice President, just a real innovator at a key time years and years ago in this country, along with a gentleman by the name of George Washington Carver, who spent many of his growing up years in my state of Kansas. The guy that I have his picture up on my wall in the Senate offices. Had just an amazing individual, both as an intellect and as a humanitarian, and a man of faith. And just had a very interesting growing up, and the connection that the two of them made at Iowa State University. And one of the sad chapters for my state's part, in that George Washington Carver applied for college at Highland Community College in Kansas. Was accepted. This is about the 1880s or so. Went there, and they saw that he was black, and they said, "I'm sorry, we don't accept African Americans here." And it was devastating to him. But in the end, he ended up coming to Iowa State University. Got a great background in agriculture and botany here, and was a tremendous contributor to the country and the society. Sad chapter for us. What an incredible contribution that he made, and I was at that company today, and it's just a great legacy, and it's a great company of what they do and what they're doing now to help us be energy secure in the United States through breeding varieties, corn varieties that produce more ethanol. I want to talk tonight though about Iraq and what we need to do to end and to get in a political situation that I think we can get a stability taking place. Some people think that we can bring Iraq to an end by withdrawing our troops. But I would remind them of the consequences of failure in Iraq. Iraq would become a safe haven for al-Qaeda. It would become a failed state and risk a regional war. It would descend into genocidal chaos. Instability, terror, and genocide are not acceptable for either Iraq or for the United States. If we fail in Iraq now, we will probably have to return in the near future to clean up an even bigger problem. There's simply no substitute for winning. We're in a tough spot, but we have to get this one right. No one wants to lose. The American people want us to succeed. There is some good news taking place in Iraq. U.S. casualties are down this month. That's remarkable development, particularly given the amount of fighting our men and women have been doing since the surge has been in place. They're doing an extraordinary job. But better news about casualties is only part of the story. We need more than a military solution to succeed in Iraq. Let me repeat that. We need more than a military solution to succeed in Iraq. And that's what I'm going to cover mostly tonight. Iraq needs to stabilize for the long term. That means we need a political solution. The key is for the Sunnis and the Shia and the Kurds to reach some type of political equilibrium. That will allow the Iraqis to drive out the terrorists, to build their country, and survive in a very tough region of the world. And of course, a political solution is the key to reducing threats to our forces and bringing about stability that will allow us to bring our forces home. A couple of weeks ago, the administration released a progress report that showed the difference between military and political progress. In a few cases, we had made progress on the military and security front. We have made little or no progress on the political front. Iraq has not passed laws related to oil resources, de-Baathification, provincial elections, and other key issues. Some military successes, no political progress. These are, of course, issues critical to the future of Iraq, and in that sense, it is no surprise that Iraqi leaders are so deeply divided. As we've seen over the past year or two, those divisions will not just disappear. Every Iraqi politician knows what is at stake, and that makes compromise hard. Boycotts of parliament have become routine. When they make progress in one area, they lose progress in another. We need to recognize that this is a very difficult political environment in Iraq and focus our diplomatic efforts on keeping everyone at the bargaining table until agreements are reached in key areas. If you think back to the mid-1990s, and I want to talk a little bit of history here, we faced a similar situation in the former Yugoslavia. When Tito left, the military apparatus that enforced the government's power disappeared. We saw sectarian groups that did not get along, to say the least. They fought each other, and then eventually, after a number of people were killed, came to the bargaining table. We brought these groups together and kept them at the negotiating table until they signed the Dayton Accords on Bosnia. Steady, intense diplomatic effort is necessary to bring about this kind of reconciliation in Iraq. In short, we need a political surge in Iraq. To use a Thomas Friedman statement again. Normal diplomatic arrangements are not enough. In Iraq, the divisions are so deep, the stakes are so high, and the time is so short that we owe it to ourselves to send our best team of respected negotiators to Baghdad to bring all sides to the table and resolve the major issues facing Iraq today. And then it is important that a new diplomatic initiative focus on tomorrow as well as today. It is easy to fall in the trap of focusing only on the benchmarks that are so important for Iraq's immediate future. But we cannot lose sight of what it will take to stabilize Iraq over the long term. Yes, Iraq needs to decide how to manage its oil and deal with former Baathists. The hatred between Iraqi groups is too deep for these measures to keep Iraq peaceful into the future. An enduring political solution in Iraq requires a fundamental approach to the way a multi-ethnic and multi-religious society manages its affairs. A fundamental approach to how a multi-ethnic, multi-religious society handles its affairs. To develop that kind of approach, I think we can take a page from our own history. We started out with 13 states, very different states. They disagreed about what kind of government to put in place. But they came together by moving power from the national government to the local level. This kind of framework, a federal system, gave us our start as a country, and it's still working today. It can be messy and complicated, but it's stable and durable, and certainly two things that Iraq and the United States need today. And federalism is particularly a good plan for Iraq. And to understand why, we should look back at the very beginning of Iraq. The collapse of the Ottoman Empire created a power vacuum in the Middle East. When World War I ended, Allied powers, especially the British, decided to recognize or to reorganize the region's political geography. In Mesopotamia, which was then Iraq, the British combined big parts of three old Ottoman provinces to form what we now call Iraq. Those three Ottoman provinces were based on the same three ethno-sectarian groups we find in Iraq today. Kurds in the north, Sunnis in the west, Shia in the south. In other words, these groups have always dominated certain areas. Such history strongly suggests Iraq would be well served by a federal system. 3 states within a single country, with Baghdad a united federal capital, provides a formula for enduring political stability in Iraq. Such a political solution would reflect the historical organization of the territory of Mesopotamia, acknowledge the demographic and cultural realities of modern-day Iraq, and preserve the integrity and sovereignty of Iraq, as well as the nascent democracy that continues to develop and evolve. The door is open to a federal political solution in Iraq. The Iraqi Constitution permits the creation of federal regions. It also recognizes the Kurdish region, which is already in place in the Iraqi north. I visited there in January. I was impressed by its stability and its level of economic growth that's taking place. The Kurdish regional government handles most of its own affairs, but it is still an important part of Iraq. We should strongly support the creation of a Sunni and a Shia region to complete a federal system for Iraq, and that recognizes the historical position that these sectarian groups have been in. I've not heard of a perfect political solution for Iraq, and there are some who object to federalism. I am still convinced that federalism is the most likely and acceptable way to reach a comprehensive and enduring political settlement among all of Iraq's key groups. I believe this plan stands up well to the concerns that have been raised. And let me go through a few of those concerns. First, some worry about the reaction of Iraqi's neighbors. They worry that the Kurds might be emboldened to declare independence in such a system and force Turkey to invade. I believe, however, that a U.S. diplomatic surge in Baghdad can show our commitment to a Kurdish region that is a key part of Iraq and not a separate country. With that commitment, we can assure our Turkish allies that we support Iraq's territorial integrity. But more important, a stable Kurdish area reinforces Turkey's own security, so Turkey should have an interest in making federalism work. There are also concerns that Iran would undermine any Shia region that would be established. Iran, however, already exercises far too much influence in Iraq. Iraq is too weak to resist Iranian actions at this time, and we have already had to deal with Iranian elements in Iraq. A federal Iraq would help strengthen the Iraqi state and give it the ability to oppose influence from Iran. If we're really concerned about Iranian influences, we need to strengthen Iraq's political structures. And I believe that means working within and towards a federal system. I also know of concerns that a Sunni region might become an al-Qaeda safe haven. Current trends in Anbar province, however, show that local citizens have had their fill of al-Qaeda. A strong regional government of Sunnis would be able to help Sunnis resist al-Qaeda and keep the area clear of the terrorist threat. The other major objection to federalism is that some groups want it and others do not. The Kurds strongly support federalism, as you might suspect, because they're already making it work. Some of the Shias support federalism, while others do not. Sunnis generally oppose federalism because they do not see its benefits. We need, again, a diplomatic surge to explain federalism benefits and prove our commitment to its success. We need to make sure Sunnis understand that federalism is the best way for them to keep their stake in Iraq. We need to remind the Shia that federalism is the best way for them to bring peace to a country where they already have a sizable majority. Iraqis will not agree on federalism without strong and sustained support from the United States. But if we roll up our sleeves and make a Dayton-like effort, we can demonstrate that federalism provides bigger advantages for each Iraqi group than any other plan. If we do not embrace the goals of federalism, we will end up being held hostage to the kind of endless debates between Iraqi political parties that have occurred over the last 2 years. And And, this is a big one, the longer Iraq goes without political equilibrium, the bigger the risk of a total breakdown. You only have so much time. If Iraq implodes, we may see a genocide and a regional conflict, as I noted at the outset. And ironically, an implosion would probably end up creating 3 states. We should push for federalism now instead of waiting for a genocide and the carnage to create it for us. In fact, our policies should lay the groundwork for federalism even as Iraqi leaders create new federal regions. First, we should make the best of a difficult situation and work with, rather than against, population movements inside Iraq. Sunnis and Shia are moving out of mixed areas to places where their sect has a majority. That's taking place today. While we cannot expect federal regions to be completely homogeneous due to intermarriages and other factors between members of different sects, we can recognize that demographically federal regions are getting more recognizable every day, whether we support it or not. As families in mixed neighborhoods feel threatened and seek to relocate, we should provide protection. As people arrive in areas where their own sect forms a majority, we should provide economic support. There are large numbers of internally displaced people in Iraq. We should make it possible for them to resettle permanently in areas where their sect can ensure their safety. And we should make similar arrangements for those Iraqi refugees who wish to return to their home country, even if they cannot return to the exact neighborhood or community they fled. Second, we should ensure that the Kurdish region remains stable and economically growing. As I mentioned, our diplomatic surge will need a Turkish dimension to keep the peace along Iraqi's northern border. We should also ensure the Kurdish region receives an equitable share of U.S. reconstruction and aid dollars, something that has not been the case so far in Iraq. In addition, we need to support a peaceful and fair resolution of the status of Kirkuk. Third, we need to do more to discourage foreign interference in Iraq. We must make it clear to Iran that we will not allow the mullahs to make part of Iraq their own. We should make it clear to the Iranians that we intend to counter their moves inside Iraq and then join with the Iraqi security forces to keep that promise. We need to send similar messages to Syria and to Saudi Arabia. Iraq is presently weak, but it is a sovereign country. Instability in Iraq is not good for Syrian or Saudi Arabian security. When they give tacit permission for terrorists to enter Iraq through their territory, they're playing with fire. Such actions add to the conflict in Iraq and can only adversely affect their relationships with the United States. All of these steps can be taken now. In fact, time is of the essence. We have to prepare for federalism now if it is to become a reality in time to make a difference. We have to get Iraq on the road to political equilibrium before Iraqi politics implodes. I believe that a diplomatic surge that promotes federalism provides a path to victory. Some believe we should simply withdraw our troops and close the book on Iraq. But that only guarantees that the story ends as a nightmare. I believe we can make another choice. We should implement a diplomatic surge that promotes a federal Iraq, where Sunni, Shia, and Kurds manage their own affairs within a united state, unified state. This political solution can bring equilibrium to Iraq and lead to the stability necessary to ensure we do not have to return to Iraq. That's the kind of ending we all want in Iraq. And if we're honest with ourselves, it is the only kind of ending we can accept. Thank you for allowing me to put those thoughts forward and to flesh them out more. I appreciate the chance to be able to present that here, and I look forward to some questions. Thank you very much.